like to call the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, January 11th at 7 p.m. We're here at Town Hall. And I would like everyone who can to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is delegations, which gives our residents the opportunity to address anything that's on the agenda for this evening. Not seeing any residents. I think we can move on from that. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 14th. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Do I have a motion first to approve, and then we can discuss?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting, December 14th, 2022.
All right, any discussion?
Yes.
Second? Sorry. Do I have a second? I'll second.
Okay.
Any discussion? Go ahead,
yes,
Richard.
During the board comments, I believe I had mentioned something about Eastern Connecticut Ballet making note that East Lyme was a sponsor of their Nutcracker event at the Guard, and also about that their Saturday night performance has a conflict with the light parade, and just that it did impact.
Yeah.
You'd like
So-
to write it up, I'll attach it to the minutes.
Oh,
You
okay.
can submit it, and I'll
I was just going to say,
Okay, thank you.
technically, though, the
They're
minutes...
only
It-
Right,
One
right.
second.
They're not transcripts, they're
Okay,
minutes.
yeah, so typically the only thing that would be included in the minutes are something that, the board took action on.
Okay.
So it's a chance for us to discuss things for the public's benefit and everything, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Karen, could you, while we're speaking, thanks. So basically we don't look for
Okay.
everything to be included.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or corrections? All those in favor of the approval of the regular minutes from December 14th signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Opposed? No.
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries 5-0-1. All right, next on the agenda is reports. First, we have our first selectman, Mr. Siri.
Hi, Kevin
Welcome.
Siri, 25 Quillcrest Road, East Lyme, First Selectman. First of all, we've met a couple times with members from the Yale Charette Study and Main Street Organization regarding a couple things. The Dominion building, they've taken a look at that. They're going to come up with some ideas and give us some ideas of what it would look like if it were sold commercially and it was used for commercial development, or if the town held it and sold it and it was developed for something that was sort of a mixed facility for some commercial, but yet the town would hold some control for a little bit for bathrooms, some recreation areas and stuff like that. And also they even said to consider, there's probably about 30 parking spots right there, which could be considered possibly, we brought up the idea of maybe from Memorial Day to Labor Day, that would be for paid parking in that, for that specific area. So some ideas in that area just for that, for the Dominion building. They walked through it and they were in total agreement that that building just cannot be, refurbished and stuff like that. It could, but the cost would exceed what it would take to take it down and put up something different. They also have they're helping field some ideas and for the Atlantic Cinemas. There's been a couple of groups that have come forward with some interest in making it a center for theater, cinema, and possibly like dinner theater type things. So there is a lot of ongoing stuff with that. A lot of good ideas. And the Mitchells are involved. They seem very committed to making sure it stays something that would be a resource and asset for the town. So, but to say anything beyond that would just be conjecture at that point in time. but the Mitchells do seem very interested in doing that. Soapy Noble Car Wash, they're be holding a hearing on that, and with zoning coming up, and if that's approved, some work should be done. So by the spring, that will be done. Hopefully, opened at that point in time. And I once made a comment that I said 120 cars a minute. I know it slipped out, and I said nope, an hour, 120 cars an hour, and it wound up on the community forum that how are we going to do that? No, it's 120 cars per hour at most. I did say the other thing, but. I don't know anything that can move that fast. So anyway, I've been going through, starting this week, I've been doing budget reviews with several of the departments, and I'll be ongoing for the rest of this week and next week. Inflation has had somewhat of an impact, but we're trying to keep things as absolutely low as possible. There's some areas where if it can wait till next year or it can be stretched out, we're going to do that. Because we're anticipating a big bump with inflation and so forth like that. We don't know. Haven't sat down with Kevin to start estimating what we will anticipate for revenue as far as tax revenue for next year, because sometimes if you see a little bit of a downturn in the economy, your tax collection rate will be affected. So, but that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Our new building official, Dave Grant, I can't pronounce his last name. He started a week ago Monday, loves it here, said he has not seen a town that, people so cordial. And that, so he's very happy to be here. He's a resident in the area. So with him there, Ed Scarpati will stay on, but he'll stay on full-time for about a month, and then he'll start backing off to what were his previous part-time hours, but he will stay there. One of the things that was identified, too, is it took us 8.5 months to find a full-time building official. We're not alone in that. There's just not a resource of that. The resource in that area is very difficult because the state during COVID stopped giving the certifications and so forth like that. So there's a really backup right now. Even COG, who is looking for a part-time person to help out with a couple of smaller towns, is having trouble. So it's a very, very difficult thing, not only in building but zoning as well. There's just not the resources out there right now. Regarding the storm over the Christmas break, we had, all things considered, we had minimal damage from that. To the biggest, Pine Grove had the biggest outage of about 170 people. Walnut Hill had about 80. We had a little over 300 total. So by Saturday afternoon, we were down to I think 3 or 4, and those were just isolated residential thing. The biggest problem was we had a tree come down and knock power lines down and a pole partially down at the entrance to the transfer station. So we couldn't access it for a couple of days except for town trucks who had to kind of weave their way in. I finally found out what can really upset people if they can't get into the transfer station. But we opened it Thursday for about half a day before we had to close it because it required Eversource to bring in a rock breaking truck because of where the pole is. They had to use that to break up the rock, then remove the pole, put the pole, and get the wires done. So by about 2:30 Thursday, that was done, but that was a tough couple of days. So, and here again, a lot, the Tuesday after Christmas, all the cardboard that you've had for all those presents you want to take to the transfer station, couldn't get there. So, but it's all set now. But that was the biggest hit. We had talked before, and I appreciate that we were going to have a company, an architect, looking at sealing the outside of the public safety building because of the type of the split. Bill, Bill's sure will be here. The split brick facing on it. We've got a quote, an estimate by Silver Petrocelli, and it's about $72,000. But that also includes the $14,000 we gave him, so it'll be lower than that right now. He will take care of going out and getting, Silver Petrocelli will take care of going out and getting the RFPs and getting the quotes for us. That's part of the agreement for what we did for them. So probably by springtime we'll know what to do. It looks like what we're going to recommend is the sealant. They basically spray the building, and it basically, basically set up a waterproof barrier to it. They've done a lot of look inside the building. Split-faced block is what it is. Bill Scher just sent me a text from downstairs, so I just got it. But they looked inside the building too. What they did is they started hitting the building with a lot of water, and they identified where the problems were. And fortunately, nothing that has been getting in is causing any problems or any long-lasting problems. This If we select this one, it'll last for, there's a 10-year warranty with this spray on. They spray it on twice, and it should be resolve the problem. They did give us a couple more options, but the first number was a 2 with a bunch of zeros before the decimal point, so we really weren't interested in that one. And that would be basically just to kind of reside the whole building. Just an option they wanted to bring to our attention, and they did not recommend it. And we have hired a student to start running the cameras. They'll be in for your next meeting. We are going to start with Zoom to begin with and see how, just so he gets the feel for it, and then look at opening up to hybrid after that. I've talked to a couple other towns that do the hybrid, and they're getting away from it because it just, with the relaxation of COVID and so forth like that, it's just, not becoming cost effective because they're doing this and very few people are doing it. They figure they could probably do it for a special, if it's a meeting that is going to be, like adopting the budget or something, that might be one you might want to do a hybrid because of the involvement. So it's a high school student. We're paying him a whopping $15 an hour and guaranteeing him 6 hours a month. So anyway.
Kevin, just a question on that. Between Zoom and hybrid, do either of those options allow, not so much for the public to all call in, but would a board member be able to
Board member can do
call
that.
in?
Board member can call in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no problem with that
Okay.
too. A board member can participate by Zoom or hybrid if they do.
Okay.
We did it with Joe Mingo for a couple of meetings on water and sewer. And I should mention that too. Joe Mingo, after almost 40 years of service on water and sewer, resigned last month effective January 1st from water and sewer. So we're going to recognize Joe for his decades of not only on that, but he was also on inland wetlands at times. He was, I think, conservation of natural resources. He served a bit of time on Board of Ed, so he's had a lot of involvement in town. So, any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a report from our superintendent, Jeff Newton.
Hi everybody, Jeff Newton, 53 Arbor Crossing Superintendent here in District. A couple of updates. This past Monday night we presented the proposed superintendent's budget to the Board of Education. We came in at a 6.97% increase. Ran through the slides. We had a technical glitch, so we re-recorded the presentation today, so it's up on our website. So if any community members out there are hearing this too, it's on our budget, the budget slides, budget book, all the information is on our website under the 2023-24 budget. So that information is out there. We'll now engage in our deliberations with the Board of Ed over the coming month as well as through February. In my discussions with a lot of other superintendents, most towns are going to be coming in higher with higher budgets from what we're hearing. We're early out of the gate, so most other districts haven't presented yet, but that will be forthcoming. If it weren't for inflation as well as health insurance, our budget percent increase wouldn't be a 6.97, it would be roughly a 5.27% increase for next year. So those two numbers really have hurt the overall higher percent increase. But we will work with the Board of Ed, and we'll work through that over the coming months. And the Board of Ed hearing is on February 27th. We'll work with our first selectman here, Mr. Siri, on a date to come down for the Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen in March, and then Board of Finance when those dates are set. So that is where we're at, and everyone's welcome, to attend. Our next Board of Ed meeting will be the 30th of January, and that's when deliberations will start, and there'll be subsequent meetings in February as well. The deficit, we got good news on the deficit. You should have received some information. Our budget to actual for December for the month shows a decrease. We went from 677,000 of the deficit down to 455,000. So we will continue to work that number down as much as we can, and also was talking with our first selectman about the idea of appropriation timeline. We're going to try everything we can to figure out the best time if and when we need to do that. But in the meantime, we're continuing to keep our freezes in place, hiring freezes, all of any purchase items, of course, everything is remains frozen. So we'll hope for some continued good weather too. Not having any snow or use of salt or anything through November, December, and most of January is helping immensely as well. So we'll see if we what February and March bring. So questions at all about the deficit of the budget?
Just one question on the deficit. Just
Sure.
going back, just for my own, it's probably in there, I just haven't had a chance to look at it, but what was the difference? I know when we did the budget last year, we were estimating the health. What was the amount that was like the difference between what we estimated and what it actually came in at?
We put in 5%. It came in at 10.5%.
What was, do you know the dollar amount for that?
What's that?
341,000.
Thank you. 341,000 difference. So, and good point, Paul. For next year, we've put in again early projections from the state. They said 8 to 12%. So our budget is in at 12% for health insurance. That's the unknown. Yeah, exactly. We would love it if it was lower. We don't know. So I think we're going to have to collectively be very cautious as we move through the coming months that if there's any adjustments needed in that, if it goes higher, which I hope it doesn't, but we don't know. Again, very early where we're setting our budget and and moving it forward. So yes. Yeah, Rich.
That's very good news on the deficit reduction there. Are there a couple of major points that help to bring it down by over 200?
Well, the staffing freeze was probably the biggest one, in not hiring, additional staff and just continuing to move people around and make things work. Obviously, we're continuing, with the ongoing freeze on any purchases as the year moves on. It continues to net us, additional savings. Additionally, as we watch our revenue accounts, like our before-after school program, as those start to climb, we're dipping in to try and take some of that funding as well to help offset this. So we're looking everywhere to pull money from. So those are the three major areas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a few comments there too. I really appreciate the work that you're putting into this and the material we're getting. I kind of went back and I think about where we were this time last year as we were going through with our presentations to the town and I said our goal was to maintain the undesignated fund balance to be at 15%. Obviously we're slipping even on that number just through what's been going on this year throughout the town and the Board of Ed. But I really want to stress how important that is. This town, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance for the last 4 or 5 years really made a concerted effort to say we need to build that undesignated fund balance to get up there. And that's one of the ways that we can get to the point where we could hope for an increase in our rating, which has an effect on all the debt. We also need to focus on our pension liabilities. We had been 100% funded. As everyone knows, it's been a bad market year. Some of those good years are going to roll off in the smoothing actuarial calculations, and so our actuarially determined contribution is going to go up significantly. We're working on a projection to present to the Board of Selectmen. For the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to go up a lot. We're hoping that at some point we can also establish an OPEB trust because we have an unfunded other post-employment benefit, which is basically health care for our retirees. So that's over $4 million that's unfunded. So that's something that we need to address. And we really want to focus on reducing our long-term debt. We look at where we stand in all of Connecticut municipalities. Right, as of 2020, it was over $5,000 per capita. So the only way we can keep moving towards those goals is to make sure that we achieve the budgets that are set out for. So my discipline throughout my career has been, we don't touch the undesignated fund balance unless it is an absolute catastrophe. I mean, it's just, that's the discipline. It's a huge issue with the rating agencies, and the last time we were rated, they said, oh, it's great that you're there, but we want to see year over year over year of maintaining that and not slipping back, not only the percentage, but then if we're going in and dipping into it just to fill a budget hole, it's a problem. So, I commend you for the work that we're doing so far, but I don't want the mindset to be that the answer is we're going to, just come back to the town and look for money. The town side of the budget has its own issues. We're faced with a lot of those same inflation and just issues with staffing and everything else. So I just don't want that to be the mindset. I want it to be, you're going to do what it takes to erase this deficit. That should be the goal.
That is the goal. There is no other mindset. I mean, this is an anomaly. We typically, as I stated last time I was here, we've given back to the town $1,939,000, just over that, over the last 5 years, to help get that number and percent for the fund balance, where it is. In future years, we will continue to do that. That's typically the case of what happens. This is one of those years, with a budget of 57 million and we get it down this thin, you close in on the potential for something of this nature to happen. And you're right, in my mind, it is a catastrophe, and it's not something that I ever want to see happen again. It's never happened, in my 10 years as a superintendent, that's for sure, and I don't want to see it happen again.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think the rating agencies would look at it as a catastrophe.
Well, and I know the rating agencies look at a number of different items as well, but I agree it is a component that does factor in.
But I would love to see, because we want to work with you, and I know over the past, I don't know, at least a year since I've been here, there have been different ideas that have been tossed around. I know, one was, why can't you build a fund so that when you did have years with excess?
Yeah.
Now, I think we would all be happy to look at that if that's something that you want to propose, and make a formal proposal and say this is how it would work, because we can't really look at it unless we see something.
Exactly. We just talked about that at the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
So that's a very good idea, because you can take 2% of our overall budget and put into a separate fund.
And I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but I know it's an idea that
Exactly.
we haven't seen anything more from.
Yeah, we'll be having more discussions about that, and I think that is something that we should definitely be looking at.
And I know at the first budget workshop that I went to, there was a lot of discussion on the healthcare costs that are being absorbed by the Board of Ed, that, even some of the Board of Ed members were saying really don't belong on the town, that, either family's own health insurance should be absorbing some of these. And I think, Richard, you shared a suggestion on something to help mitigate some of the extra work that the Board of Ed is doing, which really isn't the role of the Board of Ed, and is there some way we can offset some of those expenditures that you have?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether you've explored anything there. Is there something, whether it's working with our state representatives, that would help move those ideas forward? But, again, I feel like it's an idea that popped up, but then we haven't.
Well, we did look into
Okay.
it, but see, where that comes from is those students who are receiving services are identified under special education. So there isn't a possibility for us to turn to parents in that case, because through an individualized education plan, we're responsible for covering the costs of all those educational services.
Yeah, it sounded like it was more issues than just special education.
I read it as special education. Yeah,
Those are the costs.
that's where the costs come from.
Provide medical services.
And I don't mean medical services, but it
You're talking
sounded like
speech
it was a lot
services,
of-
different counseling services.
No, it was behavioral.
Yeah, I think it's along the lines of the SEL
Which,
initiatives.
which would fall under special education if we're providing direct services for SEL, social and emotional, learning. That's what you're referring to, right? Behavioral students with behavioral
It didn't
needs.
sound like that was falling under the special ed umbrella. It sounded like it was just there were so many kids needing support services that through the originally ARPA funded positions of counselors and therapists, that those were services that I think we were thinking about.
Yeah, if
That wouldn't fall under special ed, right?
well, if I'm a parent though, I'm going to turn around and say, my child gets a free appropriate public education. You're not touching my, I'm not paying for that through my insurance company, sort of thing. But
No, I fully agree
yeah.
with that. That's the law.
yeah,
They're supposed to
yeah. But everything
avail of those services.
we can
But
continue to,
it
to look
sounded
at.
like there was quite an expense coming out of the peak of the pandemic to provide additional support services, that there were 2 years of ARPA positions that were.
Well, there's social workers that were in the, but I think that's on a much bigger scale as to the work and efforts that they may be providing. But I think one of the bigger components here is the costs of special education and the state not funding. I know that's being discussed by the legislators. It's a long session this year. We have until June 7th, so there'll be a lot of bills. They're estimating 4,500 bills that are going to come forth because everyone can put in one through this session. Every representative, senator, et cetera. So we'll see. That's a big piece. If that cost got cut down, that would help immensely. Or the state fully funded special education, it would take an immense amount of money out of our budget. That's for sure. So, but we can continue to look at all areas. That's for sure.
And one of the things that I'd asked for last month and that you provided was, I was curious about the level of staffing in the district over time period versus the number of students. So I was just trying to get an idea of, where that trend has gone. So the data that you provided, it started in the years for the fiscal year 2017-2018. And at that point in time, you had staff of 500.3 and students of 2,757. So I got a ratio of 5.51 students to staff. Now in 2022-23, you've got 511 staff members, and our student population has dropped to 2,562.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a ratio of 5.01 students to staff.
Yep.
So I just, tried to extrapolate and say, well, if we use the same ratio from 5 years ago, we would have 465 staff members versus the 511,
Yeah.
which is...
Did you factor in the fact that the special education count of students has gone from back then in the 300s to now we just hit 500? There's where all the needs are,
Yeah.
the reason for the staffing.
13% to 17%.
Yeah.
Exactly, and the prevalence rate.
And-
It's actually at 19% for this year right now. But
just
yeah,
kind of showing
I
how
know,
that-
exactly, yeah. We looked at the same thing,
Yeah.
but that's where the numbers are,
And
are of
basi-
the need for staff are
Yeah.
at. Something's got to, in the world of special education, that's what we need to continue to, to look at. But again, keeping those outplay students down rather than sending them out, at that cost. So we share that data with you with, we have 10
Yeah.
students who are one of the lowest in the DIRG
Yeah.
for outplay students. Those are the bigger costs.
And I think that's where because I am a numbers person, I'd love to see okay, if they were outplaced versus if we had, what is the cost of that versus based upon the projected, staff for next year, if we've got an average salary of, based upon just the budget numbers of almost 66,000, I mean, does the money that we would spend on those students offset perhaps the 2 million in increased staff costs?
Well, it definitely
Do you
wouldn't.
see where I'm going? Like, our staff has grown by that much exponentially. I know we're doing
yeah.
everything we can
Yep.
and to keep the students here.
Yeah.
And part of that has been, we think it's saving money. But I'd love to actually see, okay, if it's, a question of we have 40 additional staff people and we're paying those salaries and their healthcare costs,
Yeah,
is it better to do the outplacement? I would
you
just
could-
love to see.
You could look at a rough
that's-
calculation of taking 100,000 for each student that's outplaced, with transportation. We just showed in the Board of Ed presentation the other night, 96,000 is the average, 28,000 for transportation. So use 100,000 per student. 10 students, there's the number. You're talking 1,020,000 students.
Yeah.
So, and the other piece of that too we have to remember is, it's always the goal for the least restrictive environment to keep students in district and not send them out. So it's important that, we're working to do that, but that takes
Right.
staff members and services, yeah.
But
So, but I understand
But
your,
also,
I understand
yeah,
your point, the
being
balance of,
cognizant that
yeah.
it's
but-
not saving the town money, it's,
Yeah, there's two pieces.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is, but there's the other side of the philosophical component to it that's important. But
Yeah.
I
And
see
I-
what you're saying. From a
and I-
financial perspective, yeah.
right. And
I see where
I
you're going.
sort of, in that same view, look at when we have students from outside of our district that come in. Now, I know, your point has been the money that we charge them goes to the town. Why doesn't it go to the Board of Ed? I don't know why. I really don't know why. But at the same time, I also say, well, but why do we do this? Because, we're not a for-profit, we're a public school district serving the town of East Lyme.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we're taking in students for pay from other places, at what point do those added students equate to needing
Yeah,
to
the need
keep
for
that
it to-
staff level up?
Yeah.
Which then goes into our
Yeah.
cost and healthcare and everything else.
Agreed, yeah.
So,
And if they have needs too, a special education need of
Yeah.
some sort. We currently don't have any tuition paying students that have special needs, but there would be an additional charge if there were for that too. But yeah, we don't. We have a minimal number of tuition students right now.
because that definitely, it all, when your major cost is the cost of the staff, and those are a couple of
Yeah.
big influences. The
Yeah.
other thing you had mentioned, and it makes sense to me, is that the Board of Ed budget bears the cost of a lot of things that happen in your facilities after hours and all that kind of thing. And why doesn't the town side of the budget bear any of that? Which, sort of makes sense to me if you've got, non-students in a building using facilities and it's requiring, but at the same time, I still haven't seen any, here's a proposal, this is what's happening in, our facilities and that are not related to education.
Yeah, and you'd have to flip that as to, because we use the town fields too. There's that
Yeah.
back and forth as to, if we were to, would it be an offset of a charge, either way.
Yeah.
With our use of Brydebrook, for instance, the town's use of the gyms, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And so I don't know whether it's worth the effort to figure it all out, but if we throw the argument out all the time, but then you got to look at the other side too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just we keep talking about some of these ideas. My point is, if there's something here that we should explore, then, let's get an actual proposal and see whether it's something that we can do for the,
Okay, yeah.
but
Okay, thanks.
that's sort of my main comments on, and again, the Board of Finance doesn't have any purview over how you spend your budget, but
Yeah.
it is my great hope that you close that gap, because it's just, it's not going to be, it's not going to help us get towards any of our goals if we,
Yeah.
if we can't.
Yeah, it's, again, not something that we ever want to see happen again, that's for sure. An anomaly of a year, that's for sure. So, thanks.
All right, thank
Okay.
you. Oh, one more, sorry.
Yeah.
Moving right along as far as staffing. The ESSA grant from the American Rescue Plan ended in September 2022.
For us,
Yeah.
it's ending at the end of this year.
Well,
You have another
there
year.
were two grants, the ESSA and ESSA.
Oh, you're talking, okay, yeah, ESSER and
So the initial
yeah.
one ended last September, which was $171,000. And then the one you're talking about ends this September, which was,
Well, for us, it does. It ends 2024.
yeah, it's like $770,000.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, the staffing that money paid for,
Mhm.
when the money runs out on those grants, what happens to the staffing? Do they sunset like the money? Do they let go, or are they absorbed into the school system?
There's 8.5 staff members right now in this current school year that are being funded by the remaining
In
dollars.
that initial ESSA grant?
No, that money's done.
I know.
Whatever is left that we have right now, our funding,
The staffing in that grant, where did they go?
that was last, I'd
Last
have to
year,
go
what
back,
happened
John,
to them?
and
People-
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know from,
Are they still in the
Last
school
year.
system? Are they still working for the school system?
I'd have to go back and check. Yeah, I don't, I know what we have this current year, but the previous year, I'm not sure which.
This year, we're going down 18 and a half positions, and last year, I believe we decreased as well.
We'd have to check to see if there was, there had to have been, because we're down to 8.5 positions for this year. And now we're going down to 1.5 positions for next year, which that's what's going into the operating
Grant
budget.
money in ESSA 2 runs out this September.
Yeah.
All the staffing that's involved in that grant, what happens to them?
As is, most of them are disappearing. Only 1.5 FTE positions
Yeah.
are still remaining for next year that are in the operating budget for next year. The rest of the 8.5 is going away.
When you say going away,
We're eliminating the positions. 4 elementary teachers, 3 technology teachers, 7 positions. Or 3 technology teachers, 7 positions total.
okay.
Yep. In the budget presentation, we shared some of that information as well.
Right.
You can see those reductions in those slides.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for Mr. Denton? No. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next, Mr. Gervais, our Director of Finance.
right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Not showing up on that second screen, though, is it? Yeah, I don't think people at home can see it, but we'll work on that next month. All right. So, I'm going to beat a dead horse on a couple of these topics. You've heard about for the last five or 6 months now, Nova Time. We're going live in 2 weeks with Nova Time. So that's moving forward. This week, we just received our project manager for Munis. So I'm working with Mariana Stevens at the Board of Ed on that project. We're rolling out purchase cards. We talked about that. We have a couple updates of the financial statements. We have a new fund balance projection to talk about. I just have the policy update here as a placeholder. I did not get to that this month. We have some updates with the fiscal year 23 budget, and then just some talking points with the 24 budget, and then also not included on here, I have a couple slides on the debt of the town. Oh, no. All right. So I'm not going to spend more than 30 seconds on this slide. Nova Time's on target. January 30th is our go live date. We don't really have our goal is, my goal is July 1 for Tyler Technologies, the ERP system we're adopting. We just switched over to the Amazon Web Services hosting for that, so we're hosting all with Tyler, so it'll be more secure going forward. Purchase cards, we're still rolling that out to all departments instead of credit cards. With regards to the audits, so I have a firm commitment from CLA for January 31st, so a couple short weeks away. I had an email exchange with Ron Nossick this morning, and we are, so it went in technical review, came out of technical review, they asked a bunch of questions, and it's resubmitted, and once it passes that second technical review stage, we'll be ready to issue, hopefully. So, crossing the finish line. We're in the 9th inning. Top of the 9th inning, not bottom. So a little ways to go. Yeah, yep, we're right there. We can see the finish line. And then we jump right into the fiscal year 22, I'm sorry, field work, preliminary field work we're going to have to schedule. So just so everyone knows, that was due December 31st. So we are late on another financial statement, but hopefully 23 will be on time, get that 12/31/2023 date, and so we'll get 3 audits done this year. So that's the hope. I still haven't heard from the Department of Public Health about the 2022 audit or the 2020 audit. Maybe that letter got lost in the mail or something. That'd be nice. Or they just said, you know what, they've got enough problems. We'll let them deal with that. So not quite sure what's going on with this. I have to reach back out, but at minimum, we're moving the goal here for 21. So we'll get one of those off our plates. This is just a slide just so I keep this fresh in everyone's mind. Love to establish a grant fund with, and then maybe an OPEB trust fund. But I'd prefer the grant fund first. Fund balance policy, we talk about that every month. So we're gonna this will be one of our next big goals here, to get a fund balance policy out the door. And then bring in additional resources. We talked about this at length 2-3 meetings ago. As far as now that the year is done for most municipalities that filed timely, some finance directors are available, so bring them in and help us clean up the books a little bit, bring in some more exhibits and work papers in the financial statements, and provide a little more transparency with some of the numbers. And then going forward, in the next budget year, I'm not quite sure when we're going to get to it this year, but hiring a senior accountant, purchasing agent position to centralize purchasing policies and establish a number 2 in the office in my absence. So, jumping right in, this is the latest fund balance projection. So, this has changed a little bit since last time you've seen this. So after reviewing the, needs a shelf in here. Reviewing the balance sheet, the budget, I saw at the bottom of the budget there's a use of fund balance in the current fiscal year of $1.3 million. So I was thinking, how do I show this? Because really, if we come in 100% revenue, 100% expenses, our fund balance should go down $1.3 million, because that's our how we funded the portion of the budget last year. So we need to, I tried to show this here. So you can see the second to last line there says current year effect on fund balance. We start with a negative $1.3 million. And then the middle part of the page is any unexpected revenues or expenses. And it's unexpected to me. So some of you may know there's a new line there, the BOE lawsuit judgment use of fund balance. That came across my desk yesterday. So when I look at the financial statements, I don't see an unassigned fund balance of $540,000 there. So I stuck it here. That number might change. I have a call with Ron Nostick for tomorrow to see in our financial statements there's $265,000 in the assigned fund balance. So I would just like to know what's that comprised of. Is this part of it? So if it is, there'll be a little reconciling item here, and if not, that'll stay there. So, and we're expecting $1 million more in income. I've updated the interest income projection. Last month it was $330,000. Interest rate's 4.5% for stiff. So we're doing pretty good on the interest income side of things. So current projection for end of year, all holds to this is 14.99%. So, any questions with this particular slide? Mr. Steele?
Yes, sir. For the revenues, the other income, what's rolled into other income?
So, taxes are taxes. Intergovernmental is from the state of Connecticut or the federal government, and then other income was building permits, conveyance tax, anything not from other governmental agencies and not taxes. I didn't want to have too many lines there. I had to fit this on a PowerPoint slide. So anything else you can think of,
Fee related.
land use fees, any fees downstairs, any of the other departments, that's where it all, it's a catch-all.
Oh, okay.
My little catch-all line.
Okay. And then I just want to make sure that I'm clear on, at least on my sheet, it says $557,000 in the gray box by operating Board of Ed. That's that lawsuit thing that you're talking about, or is that something?
Is it the one, I have the little box grayed out, but it's not quite there?
Yeah.
So in discussions with Denise and Kevin, I took that out because we're not quite sure of a number, so I don't want to put a number there and have it, committed to a number there, so I removed that.
Oh, okay.
So
is that the lawsuit?
no, that the 557,000 is the Board of Ed overage, or
I got you.
projected.
Deficit.
Yeah. So I just wanted to account for it somewhere, but it's not a solidified number, so we just elected to take it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and previously, we did have that accounting of the, what we had taken from the undesignated fund balance going into the budget, so it's clarified that you've got it back in there at 1.3.
Yep.
And I think Anna, with her calculations, always kind of had that sitting there, and then if we didn't use it by the end of the year,
Just
then it.
don't transfer it all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here. Okay. Okay. So those changes then caused the drop from 16.57 that we had last month to 14.8.
Yeah, and every day something else comes across my desk, so I guess we'll deal with that. And so like the lawsuit, and I found the July 1, 2020. It went to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance. So I'm hoping some memories are ringing a bell. Anybody? Because I think 3 of you were on the board when they voted for it. But anyway, so it was a couple years ago. So it's just really digging through the paperwork and finding it. So
Right.
so yeah, that was $500,000 in the wrong direction personally, but we have to address it. So
Right. And then just a last question, and I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but that article that was in the paper last month about the fraudulent checks to the tune of somewhere $100,000. Was that ever accounted for in any of our budget updates that we received? I'm just wondering, it's a town account
correct.
for the Board of Ed, but was that evident in some of what we might have seen at some point in time?
I watched the meeting prior to my meeting when I started, and I don't remember it being brought up then.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how Anna accounted for it, but to the best of my recollection, most of that money's been recovered.
That is a town account, not
Right,
for the
right.
Board of Ed.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
I
town
said
at.
it was a town
And
account.
so,
Yeah.
Anna dealt directly with the bank, I have no authority.
Okay, right. Yeah, I just wondered, how it had impacted our town budget at all.
I'll look at last year's budget and see if there has to be a journal entry somewhere she made. So
It's on the back of the sheet.
okay, yeah, I'll take a look and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions with the fund balance, or go to the next slide? All right, 2022 revenues and expenses. We talked about the municipal revenue sharing account. Interest, to date, we've collected $186,000 of interest. We had last month, we collected $52,000 of interest. In November, we collected $52,000 as well. And so that's where I guess I'll just skip forward one slide. So the interest income projection, I'm now projecting $490,000. We have a $20,000 budgeted, so that's where on the fund balance projection sheet you see $470,000. That's a little reconciliation there. So about $500,000, and it really all depends on the stiff rate. So we're at 4.5% as of today. So if that keeps climbing, this number will keep climbing as well. Let me just go back a slide. Previous. Okay. So that's revenues. On the salaries, expenses. So I'm currently working on breaking out the salary contingency. We have $373,000 set aside for salaries. That includes the police retro pay, the firefighters, dispatch UPSU, and the non-affiliateds that received increases. So I have to go through every salary line and break it out individually. So that's currently what I'm working on in bringing that into the fiscal year 24 budget work paper. So and in looking at that salary line, I discovered that the police overtime line, I believe it was last month I think it might have been Mr. Steele asked me to do the projection for the police overtime and wages and to see where they fell out. So just quickly, police overtime. Worst case doomsday scenario, based on this projection I have here, is about 160,000. I spoke with Mr. Siri about that, and the chief said he doesn't believe the number's that high, so we're gonna have a meeting tomorrow and to solidify a number there. 160,000. The good news is on the police regular wages, they're under, at minimum $20,000 under, maybe up to 50, depending on retirements, new hires. So, they're not going to quite wash at the moment, but if overtime for police drops, that number will significantly shapen up. It'll be better. So, The finance office. The finance office did not have overtime budgeted, so the 3 fiscal clerks have spent about $1,300 in overtime, and that includes we had a staff member on workers' comp, so we had someone downstairs coming up to work some overtime to help out. So, and then miscellaneous supplies, those lovely budget workbooks that are like 4 inches that you guys got last year were $750. So we just had to make the purchase to buy new ones, the little sheets and everything. So I was quite surprised. The Board of Finance budget line is $300. So the finance office backstopped that for you. So just remember that in next year's budget. I'll be putting in $750 for the Board of Finance line. The assistant environmental planner, I'm not quite sure if that's the title, or intern. Kev, do you know the exact title?
Yeah, that individual. Also, some of that really should have been charged to the Charter Revision Commission, so that will be a little bit less than actual there, because when Gary, we did the budget projection today with Gary Gaishel from planning, and I said, no, whatever he has done for Charter Revision, you know, Gary mentioned, I said, no, he's supposed to be having that built to a different account, so that'll
shrink that down.
That'll shrink that down.
Next up, legal. So we've spent just over $100,000. The total budget for legal services is $240,000. We have $50,000 encumbered. So we're less than 50% expended, but when you add the encumbrances, we're over 60% on those lines. So we're just monitoring that because it doesn't take many legal bills for that account to go sky high.
We have a couple cases that have been solved, so a couple are going to be able to be closed out. So.
Charter revision factored into that, or is that somewhere else?
Charter revision is not much at all for legal fees.
Will it be once we get
It won't be. It'll be significant, but not a lot. I mean, it won't be time to. But that won't be until next year's budget.
Yeah. So Mr. McConnell reached out to us and gave us an estimate. I believe it was 100 to 150 budgeted hours spread between this year and next year. So we'll build that into the budgets. So.
Question, one more, just on the whole budget books. I would love if we could have our new IT director kind of look at, I mean, probably most of us are familiar with different applications like board docs, that we could have everything just.
I should have waited one more day to order those books.
I mean, maybe if not for this year, then definitely for next year, because, again, to save all that paper and just the time of putting all those books together and everything else, if it can just be uploaded into some application like a board docs, that would make sense.
And next year, I'd love to. So Munis is going live 7/1. So the next following year, I'd love to have the budget using the budget module in Munis. Because like the last 2 weeks, I've made an 1,100 line Excel worksheet from scratch. That wasn't a lot of fun. So if I could just use Munis, and we just put all the numbers in there, it's got 5 levels. So we could discuss that. Yeah. And everything I do is in Excel or PDF, so it's all online. I just had printed out for the meeting, so we could definitely have a shared drive or something to that. Absolutely. Interest income projection we talked about already. Budget outlook. A lot of this looks very familiar. Some things I've added. So Kevin and I meet daily with 3, 4, 5, 6 departments over the last couple of weeks, and in talking with these departments, we realize some departments, they're going to go back and review their revenues and their fees they charge, and then in the instance of the fire marshal, currently we don't charge fees for the services, inspection services, and planning. So he's going back right now, looking at the towns throughout the region, seeing what they charge, and formulate a plan to start charging fees for our services. So that's on the revenue side. So hopefully we'll bring in some revenues that we weren't expecting to bring down the tax increases. And then just talking about the healthcare costs, we have a meeting next week. I believe it is on the 19th with our insurance affiliate and the state of Connecticut. So we'll find out what that number, a better number, next week for the budget. And then just something I wanted to talk about. I try to bring something new every month. This month I was just looking at the debt, and I was talking with Denise about it. So these are DIRG G, our demographic reference, or district reference group, I believe it is. So we're in DIRG D. These are the other AA rated municipalities in our DIRG. So I know it's a little cramped, but I can only do so much with a PowerPoint. So Clinton, Colchester, East Granby, East Lyme, the fourth one in, Ledyard, New Milford, Newington, Old Saybrook, Rocky Hill, Shelton, Southington, Wallingford, Waterford, Watertown, and Weathersfield. There's two outliers, in my opinion. Watertown and Milford have very substantial debt service payments. And what I looked for here was just, okay, as a percentage of the overall expenditure budget, how much are we spending on debt service? So across all of these, the average is 8.14. We're at 7.99, just shy of 8%. So we're a little under, but also there's an outlier. Watertown's paying 30% of their overall budget to debt service. So they're acting like the little federal government over there. But whole separate can of worms. But so average across all of those that DIRG D is 8.15%. So as a percentage of expenditures, we're a little shy, including that outlier. Looking back now, I should have canceled out that outlier of 29%. If that was the case, we'd probably be a little over. All right, and the first number also is in thousands, so we don't have, our debt service is not $6,100, it's $6 million. All right, and then just to continue on, our bonded debt as a percentage of revenue, we were at 77.25%. The average in our DIRG is 51. So we are very high. Our debt is very high as a percentage of revenue. So 3/4 of the budget we have in debt. So I have, I thought I had a number here. 66 million, I believe I pulled. Yeah, I didn't write it down. So overall debt, as of today, I believe was $66 million in our U.S. Bank bond portal. So with a budget of 81 million, we're approaching 80%. So that we're a little high in our DIRGs, looking at other AA rated municipalities. So that's what I wanted to say. Okay, what are our, these are like competitors. What are these guys doing? So on average, we are a little high with a debt load. So, and then just as a, I think Denise said it earlier, per capita, it's $5,000 a person for debt. As of, I believe it was 2020. So it's we've taken out, I think we took out 5 million last year, 6 million, 5 million the year before that, so that's probably up. So I wish I left on a better note than we've got a little bit of debt. But
the good news is we're focusing on all of these things that, we need to be focusing on.
Absolutely. So just something to keep in mind as we enter the budget season. So that's all I have.
Anyone have any questions for?
Just had a clarification. When you were talking about the police overtime, I think you said 56,000. You said that was a soft number. That's not.
Well, so there's a couple people on medical leave. They're hiring a few new people. There's some retirements. So there's a lot moving with the regular wages. They're about 40,000 a pay period. So I figured we have 25 more pay periods. What was your question?
You said that there was a disagreement among I was unclear on how you described
overtime.
that number. Yeah, on the
Overtime.
Overtime is what I'm asking about.
well, so we have multiple overtime accounts for the police. There's 4 overtime accounts. There's patrol, this is regular overtime, the normal, the big one. There's also police overtime in private duty
Right,
when they
right.
do the side roads. So there was a discussion about, okay, is some of this incorrectly charged or something to that effect. So I just have to spend some time. I mean, I did this an hour ago.
Okay.
So I've got to spend some time digging through this number. But when I saw this, I said, now that I know about it, I've got to tell the board. So if maybe next month I'll come back and say that number was a total anomaly. Half the private duty was charged there, and we're all good.
That's what you love to say. Okay.
That's what I'm. Knock on wood.
Okay. Thank you.
So, any other questions?
Thank you. Next on the agenda is new business. We have a special appropriation to consider of $7,000 to replace the Grand Street boat launch ladder. And we have, he's right here. We have our Deputy Director of Public Service, Bill Shear, is here to address the item.
Hi, Bill Shear, Deputy Director of Public Works. I'm going to pass some stuff up.
Oh, picture.
Some of this is a repeat, some of it's new. Picture says a good 300 words. You guys already have that, but
Yeah, I got the blueprint. Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah, we got it.
I can throw a couple up here just in case they got misspelled. I was down there, it isn't looking too good.
The what?
I was down there, it isn't looking too good.
No, it's not looking good at all.
So this is an interesting project because we own this boat launch in this picture here, Grand Street Boat Launch, and the land below it on the south side. Nobody really has jurisdiction over it. It's kind of like an orphan part of town. As Public Works, we just sort of jump in and take care of things that nobody else really claims. About 3 or 4 years ago, we redid the portion of the boat launch underwater. That's all new concrete. It's a public boat launch for anybody, town, anybody can use this boat launch. Now, if you see there, it says ladder location. So there, I didn't even remember this ladder being there. Been here for 21 years. Somebody called and said this ladder is in disrepair. So if you look at the 11 by 17, you can see the picture of the ladder right here. It's a pressure-treated wood ladder built, I have no idea when, by who, I don't know. And they said it's in disrepair, so the bottom of it has been in water for years. The wood is rotten, the bottom rungs are gone. So that's a less than optimal situation from a usability and liability standpoint. So, and I'm not a huge boater, but some of you may be. This ladder is actually needed down there. If say for example, you're launching your boat yourself, you back your vehicle and your boat down into the water, and you have to get on the boat, release the boat, go out into the water. You have to pull up somewhere to stop, get out of the water, move your car. So you have to pull up to this ladder, tie your boat up, climb up the ladder, get on land. There's no docks available for this. So you have to use this ladder or scale the bulkhead. So you get out of there, you go park your car, you come back, climb down the ladder, get in your boat. And if you have 2 people, you still need the ladder. It's just slightly different. So the ladder is required, unfortunately, because my first option is let's get rid of the ladder. That's free. I know you guys like free. So we proceeded to try to figure out how to replace this ladder in the most cost-effective manner possible, which is not easy at all. It turns out that when you construct a ladder, it's governed by 3 different agencies: OSHA, ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute, and the Building Code. Now we have 3 people that are going to tell us how to build this ladder. There's a lot of things that goes into this building this ladder. It has to be a certain width. The rungs have to be a certain distance apart. You have to have tow room behind the ladder so that you don't hit something and slip off of it. When you get to the top, you have to have rails that go like this so that you can climb up and down. Everything has to be anti-slip, just like a swimming pool, that part there. Nothing's easy. And it took myself and one of my engineers quite a long time to come up. Oh, and the whole time this ladder's sitting there, there's boats hitting it. Big boats banging on this thing. And our goal is to build everything in town that lasts a minimum of 50 years. That's our goal. I never want to come back to this, and I know none of you ever want to come back to this again. So this is actually quite a complex design. We're using timbers that are I think they're 8 by 8 or 10 by 8, 10 by 10 timbers. We're using stainless steel rungs, knurled stainless steel rungs. That's they're going to be 1 inch. That's smaller. It's a sample, but if you can feel the texture on that, it's anti-slip. And when you start getting into rungs, it gets really weird because if you have a flat rung and it's underwater, you get algae on it. No matter what you do, it's going to be slippery. So a round rung with algae on it, with that texture, your pressure of your foot has enough weight to actually go through the algae, so it's now anti-slip even if you're in the water. These are the things we have to think of. And of course, it's stainless steel, which is not cheap. The top part is stainless steel. Everything has to be prefabricated, lowered over the edge, bolted to the bulkhead. Then the stainless steel guy has to come in to fabricate the rungs on the top. So needless to say, this is a pain. It was a pain. And we've designed the most economical ladder we can with the parameters that we have to work with. And it'll last way over 50 years. So unfortunately, this may cost up to $7,000, hence the appropriation. I think I covered most of that. Is there any questions?
When you put marine in front of something, then the price goes up.
Trust me, I've never built a ladder before, and I never want to build another ladder again. And the thing is, this is probably going to be the only compliant ladder in the state of Connecticut. Because you can order them online, and they are thin little stainless steel things that don't meet code that the first boat would demolish. So this is not something you can just buy.
So I think you've answered a couple of my questions, because I was concerned. I understand the materials, and
Yep.
but the installation cost is what caught my eye, and that's being done. That's contracted out.
We are going to order the pieces and parts ourselves and purchase them ourselves, and then subcontract ourselves the stainless. We've got 3 or 4 people involved with this. We get the best price when we GC the whole project. So that's how we're working with it. And the problem is the people that build this stuff are very hard to track down and nail down and get to do anything right now. So the labor prices right now are probably 50% higher than they were, 2 years ago.
So it's because it's stainless.
It's just this type of work. This is specialty marine work.
Mm-hmm.
That's a contractor that's not your normal contractor.
And the other thing that you said that kind of supports what on the surface looks like a pretty high price for a ladder is that the boat has to smash up against it without damaging the ladder.
Yes. And then once you get over the top, there's actually the top of the bulkhead. We have diamond plate stainless steel there, or diamond plate aluminum, I think. Mm-hmm. So that's non-slip also. And then you have struts to hold up the aluminum pieces that go like this, because there's going to be people hanging on it, banging on it, and so it's.
So you've answered the questions that I came in here with, but the other question that sort of.
It's up to $7,000, by the way. We don't plan on spending any more money than we absolutely need to.
It doesn't look like you're looking to spend any more.
No. I mean, I'm really hoping it comes in at like 5.
The bulkhead that it's in is substantial enough.
Yes,
because I didn't pay attention to
during the boat launch reconstruction, that bulkhead started collapsing a little bit. So as part of the project, we reinforced that whole bulkhead, added piles, dug the earth back, put some dead men in, and supported that whole bulkhead. That bulkhead's probably good for another 50 years.
Okay, so the ladder will.
Yes. Nope. This. Okay. And also, if you can see where the ladder is, it's between 2 piles. Yeah. This will actually you can see at the top right hand corner, the finished product is slightly recessed behind the face of 2 piles. So when you get a big boat, it will hit the piles, but they do go like this. Yeah. One of the things people don't realize in marine engineering is one of the biggest things that cause damage is boats. In a storm, if a boat gets loose, you know how you get your house on your piles? If a boat gets loose and gets under your house is gone. Because that boat's just going to go like this and the waves are going to hit it. People don't really consider that. So, floating things like boats cause a lot of damage that nobody thinks about.
He's doing my presentation.
Have your numbers and colors.
Well, do you have any? Yeah.
I'll move to approve a special appropriation not to exceed $7,000 for replacement of the boat access ladder at the Grand Street boat launch from the American Rescue Plan. This does not require town meeting.
I just wanted to add to that, contingent upon the bid process done in accordance
Yes.
with the town purchasing policy, which
As always.
we know that, but I just like to throw that out there.
First of all, I'm gonna get
Yeah, can we, a second?
I'll second. Oh, good.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to say, did you get the letter from the town attorney today?
I was
I just
going
wanted
to bring
to-
that up under
yeah.
under discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, just pointing out that we did receive the letter saying that the use of ARPA funds is appropriate for this project.
Excellent.
So we want to, that's also town policy to get that for any usage of ARPA funds, So it's been made, it's seconded, and we've had some discussion. Does anyone else have anything to add? No? All right. All those in favor of the appropriation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very
No.
much. I'll
Any
take my sample back.
abstentions?
Get your $300 piece of stainless steel.
I'll be invited to the grand opening.
Yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, y'all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
So other new business, this is mainly just for discussion. Obviously, budget is a big topic. So I just want to refresh everybody's memories and start thinking about calendars. So last year, we held 6 budget discussion meetings between March 15th and April 13th, and then had the public meeting towards the end of April. So what we'll be doing is looking at throwing out meeting dates so that we can find room, here hopefully, and we'll get those out to everybody to take a look at and look at their calendars as soon as possible. One of the things that we had also sort of tossed around at the end of the budget last year was whether there is any opportunity to consolidate some of these meetings, because obviously when we have our employees working all day and then they're coming in the evening to present to the Board of Selectmen, and then they come in and pretty much give almost the exact same to the Board of Finance.
Well, that's why it's on. Yeah, I provided the dates that we've set up right now for, and I tried to, we tried to schedule the biggest departments that we have in there to come in, because obviously the fire departments, fire marshal, police EMD, so, it wouldn't be like a workshop, I wouldn't think, but here again, if we could, watch those or something like that, then a lot of your questions could be formatted, and you could decide, it's a big budget, but we're really good with that, we don't need to see it, type of thing. We could do that. That's why we tried to, normally we wait till we hand out the budget and then schedule meetings. This way I wanted to get it done as quick as possible, so we could give as much information, so you'll know what's coming up when and on these evenings and so forth. Today we did planning, zoning, and building. That's 3 departments, but those aren't really, this is up 40%. Yes, because it went up from $100 to
your
$200.
initial meetings, not your meetings with the Board of Selectmen.
Right, yeah. But even that, if you see it like, there's a big increase, but, you know, it went from $100 to $250. That's
Right,
the,
you know.
the type of thing. So, but you know, this is what our schedule is, and trying to work it out. We're looking at the Board of Ed's oh, they're here. They're gone. They're planning on adopting their budget on the 27th of February. We have to adopt the town budget, which includes the Board of Ed budget. We do that on which will be on the 1st of March. So we're going to have ours all done at that point in time, and we'll have the Board of Ed's, but we'll indicate without comment. They're going to come and because if they adopt on the 27th, we can't possibly get a presentation from them and do so. So I've talked with I haven't talked to the Board of Selectmen yet about it, but I've talked to Jeff. We're looking at maybe the 13th of March for the Board of Ed to present to the Board of Selectmen. At that point, we'll have had a couple of weeks to review their budget, have questions, ask them, and then after that, submit our comments to the Board of Finance at that point in time. Because last year, we submitted our questions to you.
Right.
You had to ask them. We didn't want to do that again.
Yeah,
And
that
this
was
way,
awkward.
yeah, and it's awkward. And this way, we'll have had a chance to talk to them, and then, you know, obviously, you probably want to schedule your meeting with them after that.
Yep.
So,
All right. And so then
and here again,
the final budget would then get presented to us, you know, at our Board of Finance regular meeting at March, and then at that point we could.
yeah, March 8th is when I'll give you the town budget, including the Board of Ed's, which is what they have
Yes.
submitted at that point in time.
We go to these, that reduces the budget.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? No. All right. Moving on to unfinished business. Mr. Gervais, I think you may have already provided the update on both A and B. On both the audited financial statements you addressed in your, and the fund balance policy, where you've had your hands full and we haven't finalized that yet. But that's a bear. But
We're spending a lot of time with the departments because it's my first year, so
Yeah.
we're really, I meet with the departments first, and then I meet with Kevin in the departments. So for every department, there's at least 2 meetings. So,
yeah. All right. Next is public discussion. We have no public, so I guess we can move on to board comments. Does anyone have anything that they want to address?
Well, I know Kevin in it. This is probably something that Kevin, Finance Kevin. The current auditors, they were under, I think we're working under like an agreement or understanding that it was like a 3-year commitment, which I think this is the 3rd year. I don't know if we were going to look to go out again or just talk to them about redoing it for next year. Or
when you say next year, you're talking 23 or 22? Because I really hope we have an auditor for 22.
no, I'm talking about the
23.
The
7-1.
Yeah. That,
Okay.
well, first thing, I got my tax hat on, and we got my tax hat and accounting hat. So when we talk fiscal year,
We're in
we
fiscal
talk
year 23.
so fiscal year ending in June, we're talking 23,
Yep.
not 22.
Correct.
Because if I'm doing
22 is
tax-
closed.
If I'm doing the tax return, it's 22. But
Yep.
All right, I just want to make sure I got the right lingo. So for the year that ends in 24, when do you think we
Okay.
should start looking, at that?
Um,
Because I know there's not a lot of guys out there doing.
yeah, there's
Town
probably
audit
like
anymore.
half a dozen or a
Yeah.
couple. I'm not quite sure the dates. I'll take a look. I'll look and see when. I see right now I'm part of the GFOA group, and the last couple of weeks I've received requests for proposals from other municipalities looking. So I'll take a look and get you. So not 23, but 24. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think generally speaking, you want to go out to bid every
Couple
so
months.
often just to
Absolutely.
keep pencils sharp, but at the same time.
The current firm had a change, and it sounds like the past few months you've had difficulty reaching people or getting response, which
Yeah, I know it's busy season, but
No, it was even before busy season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They haven't been the most responsive, but.
I know all excuses, I've used them all in the past.
Well, I had to change in my presentation. The prior presentation, you probably saw it. It said the original deadline for
Was
for the
October.
audit was October 31st.
Yeah.
And it's October, November, December. Here we are in January. We have a meeting later this week with our bond counsel. We are getting this financial statement filed at the end of this month. It has to get filed this month. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It'll get filed this month. We're gonna take a trip up to 99 West Main Street in West Hartford.
Even somebody rides shotgun.
Yeah, yeah. Great, Kevin. So,
Right.
Yeah, if I can, you know,
yeah,
need
absolutely.
any help with that involvement down the road, I'd be glad to help.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
it's something I just want to keep in the back of my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just close since this is the month of January, and January tax payments are due. And they are payable January 2nd through February 1st without interest. So if you haven't paid your taxes already, go out and pay them.
If not, we collect interest.
True,
So,
but
there's always that.
only at
That
1.5%.
extra compliment.
It's 1.5% a month.
Yeah,
It adds up quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned.